Hello, I'm Brian and you're watching Someplace or Another. Today I'm at Jefferson Barracks Park and I'm at a telephone museum. So, follow me! This place is pretty cool. Come on by and check them out for yourself. They have the first telephone, old switchboards. They have lots of old telephones and even old cell phones. So let's let Ken tell us all about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. First step switch over to, so you basically close the circuit, gave yourself dial tone. So now from that phone there, you're going to actually dial this number over here. And you're going to see something happen down here when you do the 4.
We were parking lots.
And now 9 here is going to step up here 9 times.
Well, now we figured that out. So we're like.
And now 4 is going to be the ringtone. It's going to go 4 to the left.
What she said.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
that's cool.
Yeah. The unusual thing is this was actually invented by a funeral undertaker from Kansas City back in 1888.
Wow.
He was trying to save his funeral business because calls to the telephone operator were being diverted to the telephone operator's husband's funeral business.
Wow.
And away from his.
Oh no, that's not good.
So he invented this first, and then he also came here and invented this phone right here, this candlestick phone right here. It's the only candlestick phone that we know of that has the dial on the stick as opposed to down on the base like that one.
Oh.
So he invented this in early 1900s. I think there's a little bit of question about that in 1905. So he invented that so he could put one in your hands, put one in your hands, put one in your hands, put one in everybody's hands.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, here's my business card too, by the way. So then in the future, if you need funeral arrangements, use my telephone, use my business card, and you're going to be using my switch to bypass that telephone operator that's giving all my business to her husband. So they're like just like one use, like your alkaline batteries. Once they were dead, they were dead. But if they were coming out to your house too often to replace these, they got smart. They looked over in your driveway, and if they saw a car in your driveway, said, Ken, we like you and everything like that, but you're not supposed to use these in your car. People were wiring 4 of these together. 4 of these times 1.5 volts is 6 volts, an old car battery.
Oh,
6 volts.
genius. Free car battery.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we're done playing that game.
Yeah.
Grandma, I don't know if you know any grandmas or not. Grandmas don't like change too much, so they went out to grandma's farmhouse and said, hey, grandma, your phone is getting a little bit antiquated.
Yeah.
You're going to need to update it. And grandma's like, I think you're going to need to update your attitude because I like my phone just fine, thank you. So grandma and a bunch of other people, they basically modified, Western Electric modified grandma's phone so that grandma could still use her phone.
Oh, that's genius.
So they took the magneto out of it here, which used to be here, and then they put the rotary dial down here. So now grandma now has to make her phone calls because they got rid of her friend, the operator, because they put a step switch in here.
Oh, yeah.
So now grandma basically has to make her own phone call here on the rotary, and she closes that up right away and then speaks into the transmitter and then listens with the receiver. That phone still works today. And look when it was modified. It was modified for Bell System use, St. Louis, Missouri, August 1970. Yeah.
Wow.
And I've talked to some Western Electric retirees who kind of enjoyed doing something like this versus doing these all day long. You know, taking those apart, taking all the different piece parts and stuff. I mean, because that would get pretty boring pretty quick. This is the #1 donated item to our museum is these things.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we don't get just one of them either. We get boxes of them. We get 1 or 2 boxes of them at a time. It's crazy. These are called drip points.
Drip points, how?
The idea to get the water down there, get it on one of those drip points.
Strips.
Yeah, exactly. Get it off onto the ground. The sooner it gets onto the ground, the better. But yeah, we have way more of those things than we know what to do with. These are little salesman samples. So you were renting a phone like maybe this one down here, or maybe you were renting one of these wall phones up here. So this basically, he'd come in your house and he'd get your phone fixed, and he said, hey, Mrs. Smith, I got your phone fixed. Could I interest you in switching you into a pink one versus your black one? She said, what's it going to cost me? It was a one-time color change charge of like $7.50. Oh. So he'd basically take her phone out, take the cover off, give her original guts back, and put a new pink cover on it, new pink handset cord. Mrs. Smith had a new pink telephone.
Well, that's clever. And
then she went back to paying $5, $6, $7 a month rent for her phone.
Nice.
It was very expensive to rent these phones. We have an example in the next room. This lady's mom and dad rented 3 phones for $21.09 a month. That's $253 a year. Over the course of the 80s, 90s, and 2000, wow. She spent $6,000. Her mom and dad spent $6,000 renting 3 of these phones.
Oh, man.
Even after spending the $6,000, she still didn't own the phones.
Ah.
That should be like criminal.
It should be.
This is the very first phone that you could buy outright. You can actually buy that outright and stop renting your telephone. Yeah. Pretty, isn't it?
Not the most attractive phone.
Yeah.
They were discouraging that apparently.
Everybody liked to mimic the Western Electric phone. This is the most popular phone they ever sold. Was a Princess phone. That was geared towards younger girls. They had 300 name submissions, and they settled in on Princess. And it's they had the motto: "It's little, it's lovely, it lights." So this company here, GT Automatic Electric, they tried to, two companies, they tried to mimic. This is called the Starlight. They tried to mimic the Princess phone, but these got the square corners as opposed to the nice rounded corners on the Princess phones. Big difference.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, the Princess, most popular phone ever.
It's an attractive phone. I mean,
It is. It really is. I love the
lines.
Princess phone, but everybody else, I mean, seemed to also. These things are pretty collectible. That pink one there, if you got a pink one new in the box, you can probably get $200-300 for it. It's it's the most popular color and very, very collectible. This is a gossip bench that was made by a St. Louis company back in the 60s. For like putting in like in your hallway in your house and sitting down and gossiping. Most of these are wooden, but this one here was not. So we had a lady come in and said, my mom had one in her house. My mom passed. It's in my basement. I'd like to get rid of it. She drove up the next day, popped her trunk, said, "Here's your gossip bench." We took it right from her car to the floor here.
Nice.
I mean, it's in beautiful condition, very retro looking. That came out of a basement of a guy out in Oakville. He said, "You can have it, you just need to get it out of my basement." So Carol's oldest son and me went and got it out of his basement. And unfortunately, he didn't have a walkout basement.
Oh no, up the steps.
Oh yeah. And they're ridiculously heavy.
Yes.
They really are. And this was a standalone, so this would have been, because it's got both the sides, otherwise it'd be missing one of the side panels. But this would have been like in a hotel, drugstore, that sort of thing. That's pretty terrifying. So the lady's husband in this picture here, she called me up about 15 years ago. It was 2004. She said, "My husband is in your 2004 calendar. We have it in the gift shop." And she said, "He's pulling himself across this rail car here in this picture. Normally on the ground, they'll pull you across with a rope. On water, you're on your own." And you can see he's got both of his hands on that cable. A lot of people wonder, like, why does it get all ripped up like that? Because they use these gaffs to climb with.
Oh.
And he's basically going your feet like that sort of thing, and you basically, tree trimmers love these things. Now the tree trimmer spikes are probably about another 1.5 inches longer than these. But you see the tree trimmers, they have these things on all the time. Oh, yeah. And then at the lower levels you have this thing here, and then you take these out of your truck and pop that on there, and at the higher levels you have the permanent pegs. Basically to keep the kids off the pole.
Oh yeah.
Very first thing they're going to do though is they're going to take that pole prod or a screwdriver that size, stick it about 2 inches back, stick it in on an angle in the ground into that pole, and if that pole prod goes in the pole, they're not going to climb the pole.
Oh.
That means it's rotted, and they're going to put a defective pole tag on it saying "Do not climb." This might have some woodpecker holes or something up above. They can still climb. They just want to make them aware of it, but this says "Do not climb." The idea with these is basically to have this thing around the utility pole sort of thing, so if you have a burnout, you basically are going to go down the pole. So that's why you always see them wear, I don't care how hot it is, or they're always wearing long sleeve shirts, because if they go down, they're gonna bear hug the pole.
Oh,
because if they don't, they're going to break their ankles. He's climbing utility pole. He'd make his telephone call right there on the side of the road. Honest to God. And the reason they call it butt set is we talked about party lines.
Yeah.
Because more times than not, you would clip on a pair of copper up there on the top of the utility pole.
Yeah.
More times than not, you were butting in on a conversation, and you'd not have to identify yourself as a telephone employee. So they actually refer to these as butt sets. How much money you dropped in for a long distance telephone call. So this lead chute here is the exact same lead chute that's inside here.
Okay.
So basically, we take this here. Take this quarter here, and it's going to hit off of this thing, and then take a dime here. Dime's going to go in the center. It's going to go off the top of the bell and the bottom of the bell. And then the nickel. What do you think the nickel's going to do? It's going to hit off the bell one time.
One time.
Isn't that something? So she knows very clearly you just put 40 cents in because she's listening.
For the noise, yeah.
Yeah. And when you put your $1.60 in, she's going to connect your call for you.
Oh.
And then with about 30 seconds to go on your call, she's going to chime back in and say you're going to need to deposit more money, or your call's going to end in 30 seconds. Yeah. But they actually used this in 1909. It's what's inside this pay station right here. And it was paired up with any kind of a phone, but basically just held your coins, basically is what that did.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a 3-slot, so if you have a local call, you can make it yourself. If you have a long distance call, you're going to have to go through the operator again. And here's the guts for this right here. The same thing for the quarter, same thing for the dime, same thing for the nickel. They put on an amplifier on a speaker right there. So basically, it allows her to hear it a little bit easier. But again, here in the 60s and 70s, you still had to go through an operator to make your... Because then sometime in the 70s, they finally went nationwide long distance, where you could actually do area codes like to all different states.
Yeah. That's cool.
Coin collector, they basically would use Basically, you use this in, like, say, like an airport, car plant, hospital, wherever there's multiple phones. They basically come in, take the full can out, put an empty can in, put that in there, go to the next phone. That was used when one of the 4 presidents visited St. Louis. I don't know if the lights will make it better or not.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, that was one of the 4 presidents visited St. Louis. They'd take this out of our headquarters building downtown, and they'd move it to the Mayfair Hotel, which is now a boutique hotel with a different name, or to the Chase Park Plaza Hotel outside of Central West End Forest Park area.
Oh.
And they'd supply the president with any kind of calling services, supply him with an operator here. This right here with the gray and the red keys right there, that's called a military autovon, AUTOVON. And those 4 red keys are prioritization keys, so that P is priority, I is immediate, F is flash. Those could be used for high-ranking military officers, and then that top FO could be used for the president only, and it stood for flash override. Okay. So if the president came up and his 120-line switchboard here was used, he could say, I need to make 5 outgoing calls. She could hit that flash override key 5 times and disconnect 5 callers on that switchboard. Pretty cool. That's a village switchboard from 1920 from Southern Illinois, Popular Camp Telephone Company, Southern Illinois.
Wow.
So in the middle of the night, unfortunately for there was a mom and pop, and it was like 3 daughters. Unfortunately for one of the daughters, she was a nighttime call operator. So in the middle of the night, one of these little doors here would flip down electrically.
Yeah.
One of these little doors would flip down electrically. The phone would ring. She'd get up out of bed. She'd say, Popular Camp Telephone Company, this is Joanne, can I help you? She said, well, hi, Joanne, how you doing? This is Betty. She's like, I was doing pretty good, Betty, till you woke me up. How can I help you? She said, I was wondering if Harold was home. She's like, it's like 1:30 in the morning. I'm thinking he's probably still out carousing around here, but let's go ahead and see here. So she said, let's go ahead and see if he's home. So then she went ahead and plugged this pin in here, and then that would then ring Harold's phone. If Harold was home, they'd go ahead and have their conversation. A lot of people say, well, did Joanne go back to sleep? No, not for 2 reasons. Because number one, when Betty was done talking to Harold, she'd have to crank on the magneto, send the signal back to Joanne and say, hey, I'm done talking to Harold. Please disconnect this call. And then number 2 reason is she went back to bed. Joanne wouldn't hear what Harold and Betty were talking about. And that's the reason she stayed up. This here is pretty neat. This here is called a calculograph. This got us starting a pool hall playing pool for timing. So you basically put the little card down, pull the left lever down, and that was my start time. Put the card up in here. About an hour later, I got done playing. She said, what's your name, Ken? Yep. Stick the card in, pull the right lever down. That's my end time. She said, you played about an hour. You're going to owe me like $6. Well, the Bell system got all this idea and said, we can use this for timing our long-distance telephone calls. So each one of these operators here have a calculograph to the right of them. Oh. And they use that for long-distance billing purposes.
Huh.
So that was like 1920. This here's the first form of 911 service. Dates back to 1852. So it was a telegraph system between this box and the fire department nearest your house. So this would have either been installed on a utility pole or on a cast iron pedestal attached to the sidewalk. You'd basically walk up, simply open up the door, lift the phone up. It was hardwired directly to the fire department nearest your house. Where's your emergency? I got a fire, 2719 Cordless Drive. We'll be right there. These are designer line phones right here. So basically you can go into Radio Shack and buy these phones, take them home, plug them in, and then call the phone company up on Monday and say, hey, I'm done renting my phone. Please come on and pick up your phone, so I stop paying rent on it. Western Electric did not make those. A third party called American Telecommunications made those, but they put the Western Electric name on them. You could actually buy them outright, or you could continue to rent them. If you rented them and had a repair issue, they'd cover it. If you bought it outright and had a repair issue, you'd have to pay for it yourself. Huh. This donut phone, the brown one, the sculpture phone.
I like the donut.
Yeah, and then the one in front of it's called the Genie phone.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of Ericsson. So that's the Ericsson phone here.
Which one?
The Eric phone right here.
Oh, yeah.
They started out in Sweden, and a lot of Americans like the phone. Americans like the phone over in Sweden, so they were able to sell the patent rights to an American company. And but basically, you just lift the phone up right here, and as soon as you lifted it up there, basically you gave yourself dial tone.
Oh, nice.
Got the dial in the bottom.
That's good too. When the phone rings, you just pick it up.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you want to just hang it up, you just set it down like this, basically, and boom, you're done.
Oh. 1970s. That screams 1970s.
Mm-hmm. These phones here, these came out in the 60s, believe it or not. The kitchen wall phones got shorter and narrower, but you can see the white one in the center and the beige in the far left here are missing the asterisk or pound key. Or if you're a millennial, they'll say you're missing the hashtag.
The hashtag.
Yeah. This one here is pretty antiquated. This here is a card dialer. That's pretty collectible there. It's a card dialer for business from 1962. So you take one of those little credit cards and you go ahead and push out, like, say, a 7-digit or 10-digit with or without area code. write the name of the business or individual on it, and then stick it in one of those two slots in the back there. And when you needed to call that individual or business, pull that card out, hopefully in alphabetical order, stick it in that little slot there, hit the start button, and it would dial it for you. I have people look at me and it's like, are you serious? It's like, it's from 1962, people, so it's 57-year-old technology. So it's pretty antiquated by today's standards.
Sure.
But boy, people look at you like, seriously, it seems like it's a whole lot of work. So they give me a hard time by then. I said, well, how about Rolodex? Are you familiar with Rolodex? Everybody's heard of Rolodex, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is Rolodex like 3.0 from like 1960. So that box on top there, you actually would use to actually program the number in advance into that system there, and then you'd use a little wheel on the right side here, or the rocker switch on the right side here, to actually find your name in between the two black lines. And when you located your name in between the two black lines, you'd come over to the left side there, hit that call button there, and it would actually call that name that you see there. It would actually call the number that you had pre-programmed into the system.
Well, see, that seems very handy.
It does, but I mean, can you believe that was actually out in the 60s already? Yeah. I've only heard of a couple people that said, oh, I've seen that before.
I haven't seen either one of these.
I antiquated this Yellow Pages. Yellow Pages was the bread and butter of the corporations, brought in over 30% of the corporation's bottom line. But a printing company would have drawers. They'd have many drawers here so you have a drawer. So we took two logos out here. We took the Buick logo out here.
Oh. Yeah,
and then we took the Cadillac logo to your right there. We took that out. So that was two printer blocks that, like, say, came out of one of these drawers here, and that's how this is a 1976 St. Louis directory, just to show you how antiquated it was.
Wow.
So they had to have a logo for each and every page of each and every directory, because that's how they did it back then. Then they went here to the printer plate. So the printer plate here, this is basically a 1981 printer plate right here. The only problem with this printer plate is made out of lead, which is soft metal. They made one little mistake here. They basically would melt the plate, break the plate, melt the plate, and make a new lead plate for each and every page in each and every directory. I mean, and that thing there weighs it weighs a few pounds. Here's a good example of what telephone directories were good for. They offered us this too. They said, do you have a home for that? It's like, oh, I know exactly where that's going to go. We got a wall just for it. Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but that's pretty much all they're good for.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm with you. Now, we've had some people say that they parents use those to prop their kids up in the car before car seats.
I can believe it.
Yeah. So here's your brick. You saw a brick phone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember these.
Is that crazy?
I do. I remember these.
Now, Motorola spent $100 million over 10 years developing this, and it came out on September 21st, 1983. And any guesses what they had to pay for it? It was business that was buying it for employees.
Like $1,000. Just no more than that, probably.
It was
like $3-4 grand.
$4,000, $3,995.
So I guess my iPhone wasn't that expensive after all.
No, it was not. Bag phones. The bag phone here would give you with this antenna here, which is pretty antiquated, give you 3 watts of power on this bag phone as opposed to 0.6 of a watt with your little handheld. So this is like 5 times more powerful.
Oh yeah, you can probably hit less towers, but yeah.
Yes, right, exactly. But now look at the size of your battery on your iPhone. This gives you 1 hour of talk time.
1 hour?
1 hour. Those are noteworthy phones on top. Those would have been in people's kitchens. They gave you both the chalkboard and the cartboard, and then you could decide which side you wanted to display.
That's actually pretty handy. Oh, it had a place for a phone book in the back.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I didn't notice that before.
That came out of Old Busch Stadium too, the one they tore down in 2006. You can see this gentleman. He's our oldest male volunteer. He's going to be 90 years old this year. Red George. He lives out in Oakville. But he's in the old Busch Stadium there, as you can tell up here in the top up here, the crown, the old Busch crown.
Where's it?
I forget how many crowns were crowns were in there.
That's pretty cool.
But he's on that phone and in that enclosure. He went to Lady in Coin and said, she said, well, we got a couple dozen phones down there at the stadium. He said, no, you don't understand. I want that one. She said, well, can you tell me what the phone number is? He said, yeah, it's 342-9215. So she knew exactly where it was located at. Phones out of the stadium. There's a replica. On the 75th anniversary of 1876, 1951, Bell Labs created that replica. That replica previously was on display in a telephone museum up in St. Paul, Minnesota that closed. I've only seen 2 of them, and I kind of kicked myself for not getting the first one. And so when I saw this one become available, I purchased it and donated it to our museum. The piece next to it is actually called the harmonic reed receiver. So that's what Thomas Watson was listening on in another room.
Oh, okay.
On the front edge of the table is the acidified water that's spilt over.
Oh.
So Watson came in the room and said, Mr. Bell, I heard you. Well, Mr. Bell was so excited, Watson heard him on the harmonic reed receiver from his liquid telephone here, that he inadvertently knocked that canister of acidified water over and spilled some of it on his pants. Oh. But he was so excited he didn't care because it was the first communication between those two devices.
That's pretty cool.
Bell was into a lot of things. He was also into flying, aviation, so Northern Telecom made that airplane telephone for him. It's the only airplane telephone I think I've ever seen, really. But Northern Telecom did that. There's also a company called McCormick Whiskey out of the state of Missouri that actually did all the notables, Ben Franklin and Henry Ford, Abraham Lincoln, several other presidents, and they also did Alexander Graham Bell also. Basically take his little head off there, and that's why he's got the seal on his head, because that's where you take his head off to load the whiskey in it.
Nice.
And in a year, so he basically did these two phones in 1876. A year later, he did 1877, did the commercial telephone right there. A lot of people don't realize that Alexander Graham Bell's sister and wife were both deaf. And that's how he got started in this in the first place. That character display, we actually moved that. We put a new one in here about a year ago. We had probably another display in here. It had 22 phones in it. The display was literally 2 feet tall. So we had a family calls from Chicago and said, my mom and dad collected these phones. My mom and dad are both deceased. We're coming down to St. Louis in the fall, and this was the fall of 2017. Coming out of the St. Louis, so they came down, did the tour, and at the end of the tour, they went out to their vehicle. They donated 58 of these things in their original boxes.
That was awesome. Thanks for the tour.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I never got your name.
Ken.
Ken?
Yeah,
all right.
Ken.
That way I can tell the rest of the world it's Ken to help me out.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Yo, mighty mo. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that museum. It was pretty interesting. Jim was pretty informative. Thanks, Jim. Hope I got that name right. See you guys someplace or another. Bye. Stay tuned for more adventure to come. Subscribe, like, share, and I'll see you next time. Bye.